All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner. Today, it's Texas week. It's
It
Texas
is.
week. The Longhorns, horns down. Horns are coming to town, baby. And we're ready. We're ready to welcome them in open arms. Not really at all. But we'll welcome them. We'll be kind at the tailgate. We'll be kind on Friday at
Yeah,
Pretzel Bell. Right?
absolutely.
At
Yeah,
Pretzel Bell, we'll have some North Peak, some Blue by 90 beers and some Hale IPA there on Friday night. Come join us for some Michigan football trivia. It'll be fun, and there'll be some Longhorns there. I'm excited. We'll get some banter going, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I've got a buddy that I worked with that played at Texas in the late 2000s. Good friend, good mentor of mine. And he's coming up with his spouse, and they've got a 10-person Airbnb. So he's going to be coming through to the tailgate. He wants to check out Ann Arbor. And, actually, it's funny, man. You talk about the horns down. I asked him, I was like, how do you feel? Because, like, do you care that much?
Is that
He's
a
like,
real thing? That's what I want to know.
So his point was, I think it's great because horns up is one of the more iconic hand gestures in college football. Like, you've got that,
I gotta
you got
give
the
it to him. It's electric.
yeah, it's cool.
electric. Yeah.
Yeah. And I told him, I was like, he's like, does Michigan have anything like that? I was like, we got to put your thumbs together, make an M. It's like, you can't do that holding a beer. I was like, what? You're
That's
right.
true.
That's
true.
So I don't think they really care. He's like, I embrace it. Bring on the horns down. I love it. But yeah, it's gonna be a good time on Friday at the Pretzel Bell. Last week was awesome. Hopefully, we don't have any TCU Texas people. I don't know.
That was wild.
Shout out our boy. We were giving him a hard time. He was coming hard, but like I don't know if he remembered that. Yes, TCU did beat Michigan in the Fiesta Bowl, but I would trade that 1,000 times out of 1,000 for what happened last season. So we got the last laugh.
Once we got to the national championship, we made it count instead of getting our doors blown off by.
That's
Georgia.
true. It looks like me on Heisman mode.
Yes.
TCU Georgia. So
yes.
But yeah, it's gonna be a great week, man. It's a short work week, thankfully. But also behind on things. So I'm like just trying to get to this game, man.
I'm struggling to get anything done at all because I'm just thinking about this game. So
I feel that way every week of the football season. I'm like, all right, there's Monday Night Football tonight on Monday, and then it's Tuesday, and you start getting the shivers. You're like, all right, Thursday Night Football is a couple days away. Friday, NFL's doing Friday stuff this year. The Big Ten's always doing Friday stuff. So you're like,
100%.
Give me to Thursday, and then Friday, you're like, well, there's football tonight. So like, how productive am I going to truly be? So yeah, I'm in that same mode, man. Just football season. The weather's cooling down.
You're just saying like we essentially just take like 5 months off of work. Like you can just cash it in. I hope our bosses aren't watching, but
yeah. One of my really good friends at work, who is our team lead, does watch sometimes. So if you're listening, Brandon, I do work, brother. You can check the Salesforce. But no, man, I'm with you. It's like it's the best time of year. We're gonna really kind of start to see who teams are. Week one, you can't really. It's tough to tell. Like as Michigan, you think about Michigan, and they're in a game with Fresno State. Oregon is in a game with Idaho, who's a good FCS program. They go to the playoffs, but that's Oregon versus Idaho. So it's like we're gonna really start to see the season take shape of who's who. And this is that first, really, in my opinion, big time game. I mean, I know we had some good matchups last week, but this is that first one where it's like, all right, we're gonna learn a lot about Michigan, and we're gonna learn a lot about Texas.
Yeah, and obviously, you're going to have overreaction central no matter what happens in this game, right? For us Michigan fans, we haven't endured a loss in quite some time now. It's been a while. I don't know if you remember, but last year they went 15-0, so we didn't have to deal with that. It has been a long time. So we haven't endured a regular season loss in even longer than that. So if Michigan loses this game, there are going to be some melting. There's going to be some meltdowns.
Well, there's already been meltdowns.
Yeah,
even after a 20-point win, they almost cover. They're half point off covering that game, and people are still melting down. So yeah, that's to be expected. But on
the other hand, if Michigan wins,
hey brother, you should see my bookmarks.
I am running the biggest victory lap around everything because here's what I'll say: the haters have been thinking about this game ever since Michigan won the national championship last season. They've been thinking about it. The Ohio State, I see Ohio State fans on Twitter already claiming Quinn Ewers once again They're doing the whole dance. It's insane, but they're looking to this game right now. Everyone's going to be hate watching Michigan, and they're in their mind. They're thinking Texas is going to roll. They looked really good. Michigan looked shitty on Saturday. You know, what if Michigan comes out and plays some good football and wins this football game?
I feel like we're still at a point of playing with house money. Obviously you want to win this game. It's
not complacent.
Huge.
Not complacent.
We're not. That was in my head as I said that. It's a game you want to win because there are playoff implications. If you win this game and then you split one of Oregon, Ohio State, like that sets you up to get into the 12-team playoff, right? Now, that's not to say if they lose this game that their season's over by any stretch. But so you're kind of playing with house money. You're still getting acclimated, and you're still kind of figuring out your identity as an offense, which we know what the identity they want it to be. Can they do it? That's the main question. Can they run it 30, 35 times, have success? And we're going to find that out about this team on Saturday in the Big House. So yeah, it's an interesting matchup. I mean, dude, let's be real here. Two of the biggest brands in college football history, two of the greatest programs. Real quick, I love that this is an on-campus matchup. We're not playing it at Jerry World. We're not playing at some BS Chick-fil-A kickoff game. You're coming to the Big House, and guess what? We return the favor in 2027. We go down to DKR in Austin, and I want to go to that game. Like this is what college sports is about. Absolutely, this is what it's about. So I love it.
Yeah, it's gonna. I totally agree with that. These games, especially now that there are more and more playoff games. There are a lot of these games that are not on college campuses, and I love that. We're gonna have a ton of Longhorns in Ann Arbor. Like that is awesome.
Yeah,
it's gonna be.
They want to check it out.
And I want to check out Austin for a game. Right? Yeah, like that's the whole point. That's the fun of college football, right?
Yeah.
So can't wait. Okay, let's dive into it here.
Okay.
So Michigan's offense, let's start there. Obviously, you could say sputtered in the first half, where it definitely didn't look like the JJ McCarthy led offense, the Zach Zinner, Trevor Keegan led offense, the Blake Corum led offense. What does Michigan's offense need to do to make a very big leap, it seems, from week 1 to week 2 to be able to stay on this field with Texas?
So what they need to do, in my opinion, is get in 2nd and 5, 3rd and 3, all those types of situations, right? And how do you do that? I think it's with Kalel Mullings. And look, we've talked about this. I mean, even at points in 2022, there was talk about Donovan's ability to be kind of an every down back. He obviously answered the bell in 2022, had monster games down the stretch that were huge for Michigan. And he had a monster game last year in the national championship, and he made plays throughout the season. But this is, in my opinion, that's not Donovan Edwards' fault. I think you need to find a way to get him involved in the pass game and in the run game in ways that take advantage of what his skill set is. So for me, it's really leaning on Kalel Mullings on first down in those early down situations, getting him the ball, because obviously, look, it's Fresno State. We've talked about it, but the offense and the offensive line in particular looked a hell of a lot more efficient when Kalel was in there. And I don't know how much better they were blocking for Kalel. I think Kalel was able to find cutback lanes, opportunities to go against the grain on defense or on the defense for Fresno. And man, when you try to tackle him, you better come correct, because he's going to drag you for 5 to 7 yards after the fact, right? So he's going to fall forward. It's that Blake Corum effect, and that's good. You're going to be a lot more successful when you've got shorter third down situations. Because when I watched it back, I think Michigan I think they were like 4 of 11 on third downs, but Davis Warren did a great job when he was tasked with throwing the ball on third down when it was in a manageable spot. Now, last year, the difference is JJ on 3rd and 13 could go run around, throw it up to AJ Barner, or Colston or CJ or Roman and get a first down and extend a drive. I don't know if Davis has that ability. It's not fair to compare him to the top 10 picks. So that's my thing. Like, get it in manageable situations.
Yeah, I completely agree. If we're stuck in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, this is not going to be a fun day for the Michigan offense. There's no doubt about that. And I agree with you on Kalel. If you ask Michigan's offensive line from 2023, Blake Corum, although that line was really good, made that line look really good a lot, because even when there was nothing there, he made something out of nothing. And it did seem like Kalel did that, especially in the fourth quarter. So I definitely think that if you can get Kalel going on just like, hey, let's get 4 or 5 yards on first down. Let's get into 2nd and 5. Then all of a sudden, to your point, you can get Donovan, going on some other things, get him in the slot, use him differently. I think that there is, you're going to see a little bit different approach to things, because they obviously came out on Saturday thinking Donovan's running back 1. We're going to try and run him up the gut or run between the tackles and see how it goes. It didn't go all that well. They're probably going to have a different strategy. Now, they're not going to change everything in just, 1 week, but I do think that's going to be the case. Now, when you think about this passing game, Davis was not the issue in the passing game, right? I thought that Davis didn't do poorly. He did a very average job. He averaged to above average job in the passing game. There are a couple drops. We talked about if Tyler Morris goes ahead, but he doesn't need to blow the top off ever. He, maybe if Fred Moore is open down the seam, you got to hit him, right? He does have to hit him. But I think if you can continue to hit Colston Loveland 10 times, in different out routes or across the middle or different things like that, if you can get Samaj going, we've got to get Samaj going.
100%.
Right? He's one of, if not the biggest weapon on the field because of his quickness, but you have to get Samaj going. So I think there's more to just saying, there are a lot of people that are just right from the get-go, Davis Warren's not it, right? Let's hold the phone a little bit, because there are plenty of weapons on this team that he can get the ball to. And I think you got to use them in a unique way to make sure that they get going.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think to your point about taking the top off the defense, he had a couple opportunities to do that. And the one, he had an underthrow or was late on it. One of the 2 outcomes on that play that led to the interception. But then, the Tyler Morris out and up that Morris kind of doesn't really try his hardest on. But I think to your point, one thing that Michigan can do with the passing game is, when we watch Fresno, and when I watch the game, I mean, these linebackers they got 7 in the box, and these linebackers are creeping up to the line of scrimmage, right? They don't really respect Michigan's ability to pass. So with Michigan and Colston Loveland, if he's split out wide, or, you have Samaj running on a drag route or something that kind of, keeps these guys in the front 7 for Texas from really just getting sucked in, to load up and take out the run game. If you can hit consistently, 10 to 15-yard passes over the middle, which I thought Davis was very accurate in those scenarios.
Correct. I thought he also stood in there and took some hits while he did that as well. So I thought he was very composed in those situations.
Right. And Sharon mentioned that, the lights weren't too bright for him. Look, if you want to come on and say, hey, look at the stats. Yeah, no, okay, we get it. It wasn't eye popping. It wasn't gaudy. But he really, for the most part, threw the ball where it needed to go. There were some times where some pressure came through, and that's something you hope that the offensive line can get better at and, have more trust in each other with 5 brand new starters. That also affects the running backs in pass pro. That affects Max in the run game. That affects the tight ends with Colston and Marlon Klein. So, all those things from Davis, I thought were pretty good as far as, getting the ball out. He obviously really likes throwing it to Colston Loveland. I too would like throwing it to number 18. But if you can get some play action involved where, hey, you get those linebackers to come in a little bit, and then you hit those shots over the middle, again, for 10 to 15 yards, that's going to make those linebackers think about the next time that, hey, we think this is a run. I'm going to be coming down. Well, if you do, then Davis Warren may be able to, hit somebody over the middle. I also will let you hop back in here, Justin. But the one question that I have is, are there any RPOs in this offense? Because I think that's going to be an opportunity to take advantage of some of that aggressiveness from the front 7. But I don't know if they're in the offense.
Yeah, I mean, well, especially when Davis Warren is in the game, are RPOs a factor? Right. Because obviously we know that was essentially every single play when Alex Orji was in the game was an RPO. But or
well, it was a read option.
A read option. But but I think that can all it takes is like one time for Davis Warren to pull it and see what happens, and they have to respect it, right?
He's an
And so,
athletic kid too. It's not
yeah,
like
he's
he's
not.
slow.
No, and
He's
you
not a
know,
burner. He's not fast like JJ, but he can, get you 5, 6, 7 yards.
he's somewhere between Cade McNamara and JJ is where I would put him, right? And so he can make it happen if he needs to. So yeah, and then that leads to my next question too of what's the rotation of Davis Warren and Alex Orji? Obviously, we saw him coming in. We saw Orji coming in. He ran it almost every time except for 2 throws, one for a touchdown, one for a duff in the ground, right? But what does that look like? What wrinkles does Sharon Moore and Kirk Campbell have in the playbook? And so I'll ask it back to you in this way. What are we going to see on Saturday that we did not see this past Saturday, if anything?
So to answer your first question, so when I believe it was Angelique Shangelis from the Detroit News asked a question about the rotation. Yes, she's awesome. Brandon and I had her on a podcast like 7 years ago, and we're like 21. I have no idea how Justice pulled that off, but she's fantastic. But Sharon's answer was like, "We'll see," and then gave a little smile. And so I'm like, "What do you have up your sleeve?" I don't know what they're looking to do with Orji. You think you would have saw a little bit more as far as, hey, if there's like a deep shot in that package, in that in that formation with Orji coming on, that you would have seen it against Fresno State. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. I think what you'll see is you'll probably see some designed options for Warren, because you can't just let them play 10 on 11. Like, that's not a real recipe for success when you don't have Blake Corum. Even the last couple of years when JJ was the quarterback, they may have not had the reads on, but the threat of him running was there. And they may do it early in the game, and he'll go get your first down, right?
It changed everything when it was very obvious that Cade was going to just hand the ball off, to then JJ having the option to pull or scramble. That it freezes those linebackers even for that split second, right? And so I can see that. I also wonder, are there some fun packages with both these guys in at the same time? Do they do that where, all of a sudden, I know we're getting crazy. And
do you remember we did that with Shea Patterson and Dylan McCaffrey? I don't remember what game it was, but that was the worst.
Okay, yes. That is the most different situation than what this is right here, because neither Shea Patterson nor Dylan McCaffrey were going to have like 1 ounce of the athleticism that Alex Orji has, right? Yes, that was dumb. I'll say that right now. But I'm willing to bet that we see something with these two guys on the field at the same time. And honestly, I think there's a chance that it works, because Alex Orji, can essentially just be used as another running back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, he would be a phenomenal H-back. Like, if he had been in Max Bredesen's position for the last 3 years, like, he would be really good at that position. I don't know, man. I don't know how crazy they're going to get. I do think that they were very vanilla last Saturday for a very particular reason, and that reason is because of this game. So I think, I'm just curious if they feel limited at all. And honestly, my biggest concern is the wide receivers. More than any position group on the offense, like, can they get separation? Can they make plays? Do they trust Samaj to catch the ball over the middle, beyond the line of scrimmage? Because they didn't really go to him too many times. I want to see Morrison and Samaj get the bulk number of snaps, which they did. But, like, I want to see those guys get targeted a little bit more. So I know I kind of got away from the Orji Warren conversation, but I want to see those guys get the ball in space, because that's, you need playmakers to be able to move downfield. And I think those two guys outside of Colston are probably Michigan's best chance.
I also think, like, I like where you're headed with that. One thing that I want, and I'm not saying that these guys don't have this, but I want to see it on display on Saturday. I want guys that want the ball. You can tell right away that Colston Loveland wants the ball, right? I want Tyler Morris to come out. I want Samaj Morgan to come out, and I want it to be very obvious. They want the ball and they want to go make that play, right?
Yeah.
Because I think right now, again, this is, there's no doubt that these guys want to be playmakers, right, in their head, but they need to show it a little bit more. This past Saturday, I felt that everybody was a little bit like passive outside of Colson Loveland and maybe even Kalel at the end of the game. Everyone's a little bit passive, waiting for somebody else to make the play, right? They've all sat there, and Roman Wilson and Blake Corum and Cornelius Johnson and Donovan Edwards, and those guys have all made the big plays over the past 3 years, right? We need these guys to step up. Somebody's got to want to make the play. And, that's what I think I point to Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris to say, you guys got to want it. And again, they definitely want it in their brain, but you got to show that on Saturday for me.
100%. Yeah, I want, you want your receivers to be a little, have a screw loose. I'm not saying you want them to be Antonio Brown, but like you want them to be like delusionally confident, like always open, right? You want that mentality, and you want to see that, when they're on the field. So I think Samaj has got a little bit of that. Tyler Morris seems like a less outspoken kid, but that doesn't mean that he can't make plays. We've seen him make big plays in big moments. So, those are the two that Michigan's going to have the best chance with at receiver. Seems like, I don't know if you want to talk about this. I thought it was shocking when I got the PFF grades and snap counts that Freddie Moore played 3 snaps. I don't know if that was because they felt that he needed to go up and try to high point that ball to help Davis Warren out, try to deflect it, try to break that interception up. He had 3 snaps. So our dog Peyton had 26 snaps, right? So
I know.
I just am curious what the thought process is there, because the receiving room is just so thin. I mean, you had guys transfer out, you had guys go to the NFL, you guys graduate, and it's like you didn't go get a guy in the portal.
What did CJ Charleston do? Did he get
I remember seeing him a couple times. I don't think he did much.
Yeah.
I mean, pull up the PFF grades.
I thought for sure that Peyton and Fred would split snaps. So I'm happy for Peyton. Obviously, he's our guy. But definitely just like, I would have loved to see it more, although spread around to see who can go ahead and make those plays.
Yeah. So CJ Charleston was on the field for 6 snaps. One of those was a pass play.
Gotcha.
So, when I say no, they didn't get anybody in the portal, no disrespect is meant towards CJ Charleston.
Correct.
But, you think about a guy like Donovan McCulley, would have been a godsend coming in. I mean, that's one thing, and this is more of like a broader conversation that we need to get into because we're talking Texas, but like last year, winning the national championship is awesome and it's the best. But the thing that it does is it really hinders your ability to go get guys in the portal because you have so much uncertainty of who's coming back.
It's going to be even worse this year because there's now
they got to fix that. They got to figure that out.
There's going to be no spring portal, essentially, is what's been being talked about right now. And the portal window is December 9th through January 7th. So if you're in the college football playoff, which there are going to be 12 teams that are, like, you have to plan to try to win a national championship and while building your roster for the next year. It's the dumbest shit of all time.
I don't understand why they don't just have the national championship on January 1st every year and just have the season go through the end of November through Thanksgiving, conference championships, and just play it through to end on the 1st so that teams have that window so that kids are able to actually enroll in school for the spring semester versus these guys transferring in the middle of February, which when a coach leaves or gets fired is the weirdest thing, but I digress. That's a different conversation. So last thing on the offense here is let's talk about Michigan's offensive line. We obviously know that they need to get in those short third down positions, but it was pretty obvious that Michigan's offensive line that we saw on Saturday was not Michigan's 2023 offensive line, right? And I think that's that is very much to be expected. You lost 6 guys to the NFL. That's going to happen, right? But can they make a leap? Can they figure it out? I'll say from my perspective, you're obviously not going to, from a talent perspective, make some gigantic, leap in 7 days. But I do think that a lot of what I saw on Saturday was simply
guys not fully knowing where, not communicating. I was talking to Jake Butt this afternoon as well. He recorded a podcast talking about this for Champion Circle, the lab. Go check that out as well. But what he said that what he saw was last year, he saw 5 guys playing as one unit. This year, he saw one unit playing as 5 individuals. That's what he saw on Saturday. I think that's a great way to put it. It was not a one cohesive unit. And guess what? That takes time. The reason that Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter were so good together, Carson Barnhart, Ladarius, those guys played together for a long time. They've been taking snaps together for 4 or 5 years, 6 years, right? So it's going to take these guys more than a week to figure this out. But what I am intrigued by is that's fixable, right? It's not just a talent issue. That's fixable. And so I think that they're gonna make. Are they gonna make enough of a leap? I don't know, but they will make a pretty big leap, in my opinion, on having their shit together on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this pre-show, and it's like, are they gonna they're gonna improve, and it may not be a huge leap week over week, but by week 4 or 5, you might say, okay, this is about more what I expected. Does that happen on Saturday? I don't know. I mean, you hope these guys are having a great week of practice. That's the tough thing about 5 brand new starters. Like I mentioned earlier, like you have guys that have not been in those situations together, like Zach Zinter, Trevor Keegan, Trente Jones, Carson Barnhart. I mean, these guys had been playing together forever. And then you bring in, Drake Nugent, Ladarius Henderson. And so you're able to kind of, ingrain them into the offensive line that's been, playing together for a long time. So you have 5 brand new guys, and you got to be very distinct. You got to have a lot of belief in your line calls and making sure that you're all on the same page. And so a lot of that's going to fall on Dom Jadis, right? And so that's where I what I've gathered from listening to the insiders like Sam and all those guys, like, if he's making the right line calls, right? He's been a center. He's been on the offensive line for a couple of years now since switching over from D-line. But, like, that's where my concern is like, if you don't have somebody that, not saying you got to be Olu, but you should be able to call line calls like Olu, right? Like, you may not be as dominant as him, as physical as him, as big and strong as him, but, like, you got to get everybody lined up. And that really a lot of times falls on the center. So, that's a lot going to fall on Dom. And I think if, hey, week 1, first start, first real playing time for Michigan in his career, like, hey, if that's, something that maybe takes a little bit to click, that's okay, but it's got to click at some point, right? So,
right.
And again, it may not click Saturday, but we may be sitting here in October, Michigan may beat USC because their offensive line is starting to gel, and it's like, okay, like we can work with this. So it's tough to tell, man, because it just takes different teams and different guys, longer. So I don't know if we can really, guess on what's going to happen with that, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, they've got to put it together this week, right? There's no time,
right?
Like the president.
You're not playing UConn or Hawaii like the last couple of years, right? So,
so they're gonna have to figure some stuff out. All right, let's transition over to the defense. The one thing that you mentioned while we were talking pre-show was looking at Texas. Yeah. Looking at their offense and thinking about how they're going to line up against Michigan's defense. We've talked about Michigan's defense ad nauseum for 9 months of offseason. Their defense is good. Their defense was very good on Saturday. They were good even when they weren't good. I'll put it that way. Even when they aren't playing at their best, they're still pretty damn good. But Texas has got a pretty damn good offense as well. And what you mentioned was how fast they play.
Yeah, they do a great job. I mean, Quinn Ewers does a great job. I mean, obviously, this is his 3rd year starting. He should only be a true junior, by the way. I don't know if you remember, but when he went to Ohio State, he reclassified to get there earlier, coming out of high school. So, he's a guy that has played a lot of really good football. He led them to that Big 12 championship last year. They almost beat Washington in the CFP game. They go to Tuscaloosa, beat Alabama by 2 scores. When Alabama was in a similar situation to Michigan as far as breaking in a new quarterback. And so obviously Milroe and Warren are completely different guys, but, it's an interesting, that they've done this before. So, Quinn Ewers on Saturday against Colorado State was 20 of 27, 260 yards. So that's almost 10 yards an attempt for 3 touchdowns. He did have a pick. And the one thing that we talked about pre-show was that Colorado State was able a couple times to get pressure. Now, I watched the ESPN cut up like 15 minutes. Was at the gym. I have not sat down and watched the full game. I don't plan on doing that. I've got other time commitments, unfortunately. But the thing that I noticed was, if you can get to him a little bit, like his interception, he steps up. I thought he should have ran. Defender gets a hand on the ball, and it just ricochets up, and Colorado State picks it off. But when he gets the ball out, they find those spots in the zones, in that zone defense, and then you got to tackle because they are quick. I mean, Jonte Cook is a guy that Michigan recruited, big time recruit. He looks like he's in his sophomore year. He looks like he's ready to take a big leap. Isaiah Bond, who we saw at Alabama last year, they've got a kid, Matthew Golden, who had 2 touchdowns, transfer from Houston. Brian Wingo, who was a big time target. I know he was down to Texas, Mizzou. In the class of 24, obviously picks Texas. He led them in receiving yards with 70. So, they were able to throw the ball over the field. They have some depth questions at running back, but Jaden Blue, who was, I believe he's a sophomore, he was about 5 yards a carry. Jarrett Gibson was about almost 7 yards a carry. So they were very efficient. They were very balanced against Colorado State. Now, we know that Michigan's defense is a little bit different than Colorado State, but the thing that I would say, and then I'll kick it over to you, Justin. But the thing that I would say that I'm curious to see is, what does Wink dial up? I think there is a way to try to confuse Quinn Ewers with the different disguises and shells for coverage that you run. Maybe having fake pressure come from one end. You think it's coming from the weak side. It actually comes from the strong side. So what does Wink dial up to kind of confuse him? Because I do think Michigan's best chance is to force turnovers, is to get into Ewers ahead and, get good field position, get short fields, right? So, but yeah, I'm really curious to see this matchup. I mean, we know what Will Johnson is. We know Michigan's defense is fast too, right? So yeah, their offense is fast, but Michigan's guys fly to the ball. You see those wing helmets corralling, getting to the ball. So I'm just really excited to watch, man. This could be the fun. Maybe for Michigan, maybe the funnest part of the game. We'll see about the offense, but like this is where this is how you win a game when you're a dog at home.
Definitely. And so I think that I'll put it like this. This is what I say when I'm playing pickup basketball with my boys and I haven't made a shot in a year and a half. I say defense leads to offense. Defense leads to offense. And then, I try to pick it up because I'm a defensive rebound type guy. I have no jump shot. You just
got to see the ball go through once, and then maybe feel a little bit better.
And so here's what I'm thinking about. Okay, if obviously, there's a big if here, but I think if Michigan's defense can get to Quinn Ewers, if they can stop things, I think where it's got to start is they've got to stuff the run. Now, we obviously know that Quinn Ewers can throw, will throw. Steve Sarkisian is a passing guy. They love to throw the ball. But if we can make sure that they cannot get into a 3rd and 2 because they ran the ball twice on 1st and 2nd down, I think that changes the game. And then I think to your point, if all of a sudden Michigan's the Derek Moore, the Josiah Stewart, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, if they can start getting to Quinn, all of a sudden the big house is going nuts. They're backed up into a 3rd and 15. This is a different ball game. And what that does too, you all of a sudden he's throwing off his back foot. All of a sudden that's when Will Johnson comes into play. That's where, the rest of the secondary comes into play for Michigan. And I think that the way that Michigan's offense needs to work in order to score here, they might need some cheating from the defense to get them in good position. Not that type of cheating, people. Not that type of cheating. But they need Michigan's defense to make some plays, create some turnovers, maybe some sacks in the backfield, some negative plays for Texas. Get this offense in good field position so that they can go and march down the field. Because if Michigan's offense continues in starting at the 20-yard line, that could be a long way for them to go. But that's where I think Michigan's defense can really change the game here.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with you. Being able to, create havoc, force turnovers, get short field, that's going to be huge for Michigan's chances in this game. Easier said than done. because again, they've got, I mean, they can go 5 wide with just speed at every receiving, every receiver on the field. So it's going to be very interesting to see how, week approaches this game. Gonna be curious. I didn't look at it. We should go back and see if there was any matchups between Wink Martindale and Steve Sarkisian when Sark was in the NFL as a coordinator. It'd be very interesting to see those results. But yeah, I mean, dude, so, and Sharon talked about this. He gave him a lot of praise. Sark is one of the best offensive minds in college football. He does such a great job of being creative and getting his guys open. So, how can Michigan combat that? You combat it with the fact that you've got multiple first-round talents all over the field. And you might have, I mean, we talked about Will Johnson, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham as like the first rounders. And just on the defensive side, like, well, hold on now, because Josiah Stewart, like, he's looking like a dude. And Derek Moore played really well, too. I know this isn't a show where we talk about it, but Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore both had grades over 90 on PFF. They were the two highest graded guys on the team. So they were wreaking havoc all over the place. Rayshon Benny had a hell of a game, too, right? So really
Glad
good
to have him back.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. And looked like he's, back to his normal self. So we're going to need those guys. We're absolutely going to need those guys to make plays, to be disruptive, and be able to let the linebackers flow. I really can't wait to watch Jayshon Barham. I mean, that guy, he didn't have like crazy stats, but dude, that when he tracked down the quarterback, like, oh my God, this guy, like, it's almost like Happy Gilmore when he's running after Shooter McGavin. Like, that's what it felt like. Like, it's just inevitable that he's gonna, make some plays this year for Michigan. So, yeah, the defense is obviously gonna be huge, man, and special teams too. Like, you take points when you can get points, right? So, the fact that Michigan feels like they can get inside the 40 to the 35 and they're good to get at least 3, that's a huge win.
I agree with you. I mean, there's a chance. I know, Texas offense could do Texas offense things for sure. But there's a chance that this becomes like a low scoring battle. And I think you're going to want to take a field goal when you can take a field goal. And I love having Dominic Zavada back there for sure. So, all right. So I think that we got to give our predictions here. Michigan ends up at, I believe they're at 7.5 right now. They're plus 7.5 is what I believe.
Okay.
So it opened at 6.5. I think it's ended up at 7.5. Let's start with this. Never mind, because we're both going to say the same thing. I was going to say, are they going to cover the spread? We're both going to say yes, because we also think they're going to win the money line too. So
I was going to say, are we doing it? Are we going all out or what? Are we going for our boys here? Because like I thought about it, and I think it's close enough to where I can just throw a Michigan pick in and just be like, hey, those are my boys.
Yeah, why not? This is a Michigan podcast, but also here's my thing. I think that I don't know. I have a lot of people, even Michigan fans, that are like, I'm going to make a bunch of money by betting on Texas this weekend. Like, listen,
emotional hedge. I don't hate it.
Emotional hedge is fine, sure, but don't count these boys out. I'm just saying, don't count
everybody
these boys out.
Everybody else is counting Michigan out. Like,
listen,
let's have some faith.
I know it's not the same team as last year, 2022-21, but like they've got some of that in their blood. Like these teams have been counted out for the past 3 years. They've been doubted. They've been saying, oh, and for how long has it been that they're like, oh, yeah, you won that one, but you're going to get your shit blown off by, Ohio State this week and Bama this week and Washington this week. And it's like, fuck them. Right?
No.
Texas is coming to town. Everyone's saying, oh, it's a done deal. It's over. Texas looked great. Michigan looks like shit. Fuck them. I don't care. We said fuck them for the past 3 years and we won a natty.
Absolutely.
Why not? Why not us?
And the thing that I would say too, right? Obviously, to your point about Michigan, but different teams. But late in the season last year, I mean, Texas was in some dogfights. We'll get some good teams, but I mean, they beat Kansas State by 3 in overtime. They beat TCU by 3. They beat Iowa State by 10, and obviously different teams. But they were in some close games last year too, which obviously will help them. Anytime you're battle tested, and Michigan was in some games last year as well, as we know. But I don't think it's that foregone conclusion that they're coming in here and just boat racing Michigan.
They've got they have just as much to prove as Michigan, if not more. Right? Michigan.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're playing with house money because like nobody expects anything from Michigan.
Michigan did their thing last year, right? And you lose as much as they did. I think a lot of people are expecting to, have a bit of a fall off. Texas hasn't done shit. Yeah, they made the playoff. Then they got boat raced by the team that Michigan then boat raced.
Well,
right?
They lost by 6, but I hear you. I just don't want anyone telling us we're off base.
Listen, we're gonna get that in the comments no matter what. But
it's true.
I think that here's my. I'll end it on this. This is not a foregone conclusion that Texas is going to win this game. They have just as much to prove, if not more, than Michigan. Steve Sarkisian hasn't gotten over the hump, as everybody said about Jim Harbaugh for how long, until he finally did it, right? Texas has got Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning on the same damn team, Tanner. Right? So you're telling me they got to come out here and prove to everybody that they're the real deal, right? And guess what? This game's in Ann Arbor. They got to come up here and play us. It's supposed to be 65 degrees. That might as well be snowing for CJ Stroud, honestly. So I think it's just going to be like, if you think that Michigan is just going to lay down, you haven't watched Michigan with Sherrone Moore at the helm, right? I know Jim Harbaugh was the coach, but this team last year in 2023 had a lot of Sherrone Moore in them. And what they're going to do is they're going to grind this baby out. And it might not be pretty at all times, but how many times in 2023, 22, 21 was it also not pretty and they got the job done, right? It's a gritty, 100%. Not pretty situation. So
I just want to win. I don't care about how it looks.
I don't give a shit. I'm just I'm on my soapbox right now a little bit. I'm ranting and raving, but that's fine. But I'm and this could get clipped when things don't go well on Saturday. But I just don't think that Michigan's going to lay down and let this happen. And so I'm going to give my prediction that it's going to be. I'm going to go 21-17 Michigan.
I was going to go 27-24 Michigan. So we're in similar mindsets. But yeah, I mean, look, that's Michigan's got to play a really good game to get to that score, right? Like Michigan's got to do a lot of things in all three phases to be able to win a game like that. And so, yeah, I'm not as confident as I have been going into all these big games the last, 2 years really, because 21, I was like, well, are we finally going to do this? And so the last couple of years, it's nice to have confidence going in. This year, it's just uncertainty more than anything because there's talent. There are good football players, but it's like, what does it look like when the lights are bright? And that's what I wonder with this team. But to your point about Sherrone, they really rallied around him last year when Jim was out. And so, yeah, and there's a lot of guys that have played a lot of football for this team over the last 2 years, 3 years that have been in big time moments, know what it's like to play in this type of atmosphere, this level of the football game. So, it's a big one, man. We're going to have the two living Heisman winners that played at Michigan are going to be in Ann Arbor with Desmond Howard on ESPN's College Game Day, and Charles Woodson will be at Pioneer with Big Noon Kickoff. So that's pretty cool. Derek Jeter's in town. We're in town. We're drinking.
Matthew McConaughey's in town.
Oh, shit. Is he?
Yeah. He'll be there.
That's insane. That's actually, I might have to buy a ticket now. I wasn't going to go, but now
McConaughey will be there. Who's the new hot guy? Who's
Glenn Powell? Is he coming to town? Big Glenn Powell guy.
I don't know. He might be coming to town. Who knows?
He's the man, dude. In the new Top Gun, he was in the new Twister movie. He was in some on Netflix, The Hitman. I think that was really good.
I love that legit. I said, "Who's the new hot guy?" You immediately had Glenn Powell.
Well, he's a Texas guy. I keep saying on my Twitter that he's a big Texas fan, so I knew who you were talking about. You refer to him as the new hot guy.
Yeah, he is the new hot guy. Absolutely, yeah, stand by.
It's a two-way street there.
Absolutely. All right, we'll end it with that. We will see what happens on Saturday. Big game, Texas at Michigan at noon. We'll be there. We'll be there on Friday at Pretzel Bell as well. So come on out to Pretzel Bell. We'll have some North Peak Brewing, Hail IPA, and Blue by 90 beer. There might be some weather issues. We're going to figure it out.
I think it's more in the morning is what I saw.
Well, we're gritty, not pretty too. So
Yeah.
it might not be beautiful, but we're going to get it done.
I don't own a rain jacket. My wife keeps yelling at me. I just don't own.
That's wild. That's
well, I don't have like a waterproof one. I have designated.
Michigan.
I know, but if it rains, I'm just not going anywhere unless Michigan football plays, and then I'll figure it out.
That just it's such a
I'll
dude
just be
thing.
miserable.
We'll figure
Yeah,
it out.
I'll
We'll
just be
figure it out.
miserable. Yeah, just be miserable.
And then Saturday we'll be in the Chrysler Arena parking lot with our sponsors: Sun Cruiser, Truly, North Peak Hail IPA, State and Liberty, Joe's Pizza. We got it all. So
Can we get dude wipes over there again? Like
dude wipes. I'm
gonna sell them. I'm gonna close them. I'm gonna close them for some partnership deals.
There we go. All right. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. We appreciate you. Go Blue.
Go Blue.